Park City, Utah, the venue for the first skeleton race in the modern era for men, and it's also the venue for race 5 of the BMW IBSF World Cup. Hello everybody, Martin Haven and John Morgan trackside with the sun trying to break out and a tiny few flakes of snow coming out of the sky just to add to the challenge of this 1,500 meters of ice.
This track built in the 2002 Winter Olympic Games. It's a challenge track because it's slow at the top of the track and it is fast on the bottom part of the track. And up here, Martin, no mistakes about Tretiakov, the Russian rocket, owns the track record at the start. Everybody knows how fast he is in the first 50 meters. Sunny curve, this quick sweeping left, and now watch the second curve here, snowy. You have to exit here perfect because you're still accelerating 70+ miles an hour. Albert's Alley, straightaway named after Prince Albert of Monaco. Wasatch curve, watch this big sweeping left. The head gets forced down. The exit, slingshot effect at the bottom, and the Olympic curve. You hope to exit 12-13 and into this finish. More G's, you don't realize you really go downhill here and then uphill here at the finish. Look, TV doesn't do it justice, but we call that the graveyard of time into the finish. You can lose a lot there in the bottom. Martin, very, very short track, but boy, is it fast.
Yes, it is. Martin Dukurs of Latvia has the finish record. Alexander Tretiakov, the start record. That was from the last race here. Tretiakov, the winner in December 2013. Martin Dukurs second. Matt Antoine was third. No Tretiakov here this week. He's back home training up for the World Championships. But Martin Dukurs has been unbeatable so far this season. Leads the standings from Germany's Axel Jung. Thomas Dukurs moves up to third with a bronze medal. Last time out, his first podium of the season. Well, we have 26 athletes in our men's field, and the sleds all out there in the cold and the sunshine, making sure their runners are not too hot for when they hit the ice.
Park for May, they can't touch those sleds. 20 minutes ago, they can stop working on them and they can't touch them.
Now you can see that the women are now allowed to work on their sleds for half an hour after they have completed their runs, and they will go after the men's heat for their second heat. Catering down at the bottom there in the low point of the track, so lots of fans out here at Park City. Park City population around 7,500. That's going to be pretty much tripled, I guess, starting Monday. The Sundance Film Festival, one of the big draws here. But a lot of people you can see along this Olympic track. Thomas Dukurs of Latvia will be first to go from Axel Jung, who leads him in the World Cup rankings, and the man who will undoubtedly set the benchmark, 6th position in the start draw for Martin Dukurs. 26 starters, only 20 go through to the second heat. So from Alexander Mutovian and Hiro Takahashi on down, probably we're in a big battle where 6 will join the spectators at the side of the track. Some of them haven't even got their own sleds here to race today, so there are a few athletes in a real hole in Park City.
The track is now clear at the skeleton start.
The track is clear at the skeleton start for 34-year-old Latvian Thomas Dukurs. Last week in Lake Placid, first podium of the season. Last year, he and his brother went 1, 2, 3 different times in 8 races.
Yeah, this is their style track. It's about the same distance as their track in Sigulda. This is a little bit more of a glider track. Sigulda, you really got to steer a lot of corners. It's got a loose personality to it, but these guys look like they're always in video games. Look at their feet, and look at that. He hits that blue line perfectly. He's our first athlete down the track, and it's hard to figure out where these guys, why they're so good. I mean, they're so consistent. Thomas, the taller of the two, he's almost 6'3". Martin's 5'9", 5'10".
And the heavier athletes in the men's field, 129.9 the top speed compared to 127.4 for the women.
Did we hear any scratching? Did we see his feet out?
Nothing.
I mean, he made it look so easy. 49.55.
That's a great run from him. Track record 48.58, so we're a second away.
Pretty much like we've seen in the other 3 disciplines we've already seen here in Park City. No one near the track record. was tied the track record at the start in the women's race just now.
It's not as cold. It's about -3, -4 the ice. It was -9 on Tuesday in training. It was quicker then.
Look at the angle. Look at his feet way out there. You won't see many athletes way out there just because he's so tall.
Yeah.
He's 6'3", so he's got a different angle. You'll see the athletes more close to the drive line with their feet.
So Thomas Dukurs first down. He is our crash test dummy, tells us what we should expect. Next up, Germany's Axel Jung. His teammate Christopher Groteher pulled out of last week's race in Lake Placid with injury. He's back home in Germany already recuperating. Jung from the Oberhof track. And again, like Sigulda, that's a very short shoot of ice and very technical.
A lot of turns.
Yeah, a lot of turns. So not a glider's track, but he's used to getting on with it.
German Felix Locke won the luge event this morning in Oberhof.
Tatjana Hüfner won as well with a track record for the German women. So finally on home ice, they are back in front of the US.
Look at this start time. This is a
62.
This is a very good athlete that's just starting to get along here in the sport of skeleton. 4th, 2nd, 6th, and 4th. He stands 2nd in World Cup points.
Last year his rookie season, and he's really among the front runners at every opportunity now.
Saw his feet separate a little bit. Not as comfortable as Dukurs, but he beat Dukurs at the start by 10.
1900s up, now down to 16th at the bottom of Albert's Alley.
A little rough there. Olympic curve, 13, 14, coming up to 15. Hundreds.
Half a kilometre an hour down in terms of speed at the fastest point, and here as well, it could be down to single digits in front by 12.
So he beat, there's Jens Mueller, the 1988 Olympic Games gold medalist in luge, who runs the German skeleton program. And the German skeleton program is starting to really come together. Tina Hermann leads the World Cup. This guy's 2nd in World Cup. Tina Hermann leads the first heat of racing we just saw here earlier. So the Germans are starting to really come together here. So 2 good athletes here at the midway part of the Olympic cycle. And this is a good starter, which is what you need. He was 10/100ths better than Thomas Dukurs. Here, maybe not as smooth as Dukurs. A little skid, but he's trying to get over to the take onto the Wasatch curve. And
carried the speed well, didn't he? There's Axel Jung. Good fun guy to be around as well, just checking the weighing scales as he's been weighed in. Next up, another young athlete really making his mark this season. Mattia Gaspari, who's just kind of evolved so much over the last 12 months. 22 from Cortina, and he does video blogs about his travels and introducing the fans to each track as he gets there.
Look how he's right behind the line. We saw Thomas Dukurs with that long stretch on an angle, so everybody has got a different technique at starting that sled. And Gaspari with his best ever finish last week, 8th. The Italians have not had too much success in men's skeleton.
Yeah, he's really kind of rebuilding the program with his performances. Most impressive.
Good form. He lost a lot of time at the start. He lost 2200ths to Axel Jung at the start. And so he's going to be 40, 5000ths down here below. But he's holding on pretty good. 3600ths. Graveyard. Let's see how he does here in the graveyard. Good speed.
It's tough when you're 3rd or 4th off and you're already being compared with Axel
not bad.
and Dukurs.
He got beat 2200ths at the start, 2900ths at the bottom. I think the Italians got something here. This guy's, every week we're seeing some big improvements out of him.
That certainly should be a top 10, might well be a top 6 run.
Well,
and again, does not know this track well at all.
Look at the feet. Now remember we talked about Dukurs being way out on an angle. Now watch that crossover of the hands.
Ooh, stumbled again. Remember both starts in Lake Placid. He had a hand on the ice as he overshot the handles.
He's not comfortable at the start, so he needs some more start training. But he'll get it. But if his start improves, hey, he should have been 6000ths behind Axel Jung at the bottom with the start deficiency. He was only 2900ths behind. So like we keep saying, he's coming on.
30-year-old Matt Antoine. If you want to read an honest view of how athletes deal with the highs and lows of this sport, go to the US Bob and Skeleton website and read Matt's latest blog. It is vein-openingly honest. Olympic bronze medalist considered quitting the sport After depression caught up with him last season, thank goodness he hasn't.
Gone through a big transition is the way he trained all summer. Sort of left his start coach. We saw him in Altenburg, very disappointing. We saw him again in Winterberg.
And now he's starting to come back. 483, that's a tenth away from the fastest start, but he is starting to get there. 2/10.
2/10 away.
Yeah.
That's what he's been struggling with. This is a guy with a top 3 start at the Olympic Games. Now he's struggling to stay within 2/10. But he changed, a radical change to everything the way he trained, and his start technique didn't work, so he had to go back to square one, and he's still struggling with that in mid-season.
The bonus is he's moved home, got himself a dog, and completely changed his focus in life.
2200 to the start, only 1800s here.
Here it comes, great lines from Antoine.
Should be top 3.
US girls 3rd and 4th, back to first, and he's second. Tuffy Latour loves that, and rightly so.
This shows he can still drive. Remember, he used to have the same start as Thomas Dukurs, and if he had that start now, he'd be in the lead. That shows you Matt Antoine still has the goods with the lines down the track at 80 miles an hour, and the speed.
Started 2200 slower than Axel Jung, finished 600 slower.
How are the lines? How comfortable does he look on the sled? That is as good as we saw of anybody. Thomas Dukurs, maybe. And he beat Dukurs also. Wow,
That is
600.
a great drive from Matt Antoine. There's a little bit of the smile that we're used to seeing from our Olympic bronze medalist.
He gets his start back, watch out.
Now, our only other German in the field then is Michael Zackrau, 21-year-old rookie. He too is from Oberhof, former ski jumper.
A couple of them in the field.
Yeah. Started just 2 seasons ago in skeleton. That's how fast his progress has been.
Yeah, 8th, 11th, and 9th in Lake Placid last week, which wasn't bad. Good start here.
Yeah.
Both German athletes have great starts. They have the first and second best start so far in the competition. That's going to change, though, when this guy, Martins Dukurs, and the Korean guy come up.
Yeah, but the Germans clearly have enough athletes to choose from. They're going for fast starters and then turning them into drivers.
Yeah, you give out six guys with good starts, you're going to find 1 or 2 of them that can glide down the track. If you got a good start and you can glide down this track, you're going to be on the podium.
This is a great, smooth-looking run from Michael Zackrau. He's in 5th position at the moment, though. 4400's back.
He's never seen the track. He's got 4 trips.
No scratching, no toes on the ice, but maybe just working a little hard for control. 50.09. But again, first time on this
Track,
ice.
yeah. Going to be good enough for probably a 10th or 12th finish. But again, it's, you know, he's young and he's a couple years out into the sport. He knows it wasn't a good run with that thumbs down. And start technique, let's see what kind of athlete he is. You see how much confidence he had to leave his hands off the sled and cross over. Here, he's a little uncomfortable going into the first big sweeping left. Sunny curve. Good technique, though, in the exit. The weight.
Lots of young fans at the trackside watching the action. It's a busy day today. Axel Jung leads from Matt Antoine with our first 5 of 26 athletes down. And now is the chance for Superman. Martins Dukurs, undefeated this season. In fact, how far back does his run stretch? Because he won the World Championships as well. Need to go and have a look at last year's results to see what kind of a stretch he's on.
Should be in the maybe the high 50s.
Won his 41st World Cup race last week.
Wow.
Fastest of the competition so far, 100th quicker than Axel Jung, so that shows how quick Jung got away.
Well, let's watch to see if he makes a mistake. So far, nah.
It's hard to spot, isn't it? You know, you can watch his takes time and time again, and it's really hard to spot.
It's like watching a video game. I mean, the guy is so perfect. I mean, his execution, performance, consistency. You know what? It's just, you know, Superman. You know, this is ridiculous. Have we seen have we heard a scratch? Have we seen him hit anything?
100th up at the start, 4400th up at the bottom, 48.99. The track record 48.58 in much colder conditions. That is an epic run from Martins Dukurs. He is currently on a 5-win streak, because the last regular World Cup racer last year in Sochi, he was beaten by Alexander Tretyakov, one of just 2 races he didn't win last season.
Like we talked about, he's won 44 or 48 races.
41 was in Lake Placid in World Cup racing alone.
Yeah.
And that doesn't include World Championships.
The only thing he doesn't have, an Olympic gold medal.
Yep. And here is one of the men who may well be the thorn in his side when we come to Pyeongchang 2018. Sunbin Jung of Korea. He sent his medal from last week's podium performance in Lake Placid to Goma Lloyd, the coach's memorial service yesterday. He said, "This is not my medal, this is Goma's medal." I gather from those that were there yesterday at Goma's memorial, there was more laughter and tears in one day than many have experienced in a long while. 4:61 ties the leader. Here we go. This is what it's all about. The 2 big hitters with Alexander Tretyakov not here. Jung of Korea. This is his home track.
Used to see his massive thighs. We saw him. He's a different build than Dukurs. And we've heard a little scratching going on. Look at the form. I mean, he is not smooth there, but still, this looks like a podium position.
0.05 of a second the difference. Don't forget, Axel Jung in second is 44 back at the moment. This is a 2-horse race, and he may not even be as much as a 10th behind at the line. It's 1600.
You know, when he had a bad opening race in Altenburg, 12th, but since then, 4th in Winterberg, 3rd in Königssee, 2nd in Lake Placid, and he's had a chance to win these last 3 races.
Yep.
Here, he's still in position, the Ironman colors, so we have Superman leading, the Ironman's in 2nd, and usually the Tretyakov's in the mix, and we call him the Russian Rocket. Watch the technique. Look at the size of his quads.
Unbelievable, isn't he?
I just can't get over the size of this guy.
Any track cyclist would be proud of
those
quads like
quads.
that.
Yeah. Little uncomfortable here in the Alberts Alley, but he's in a podium position.
And his coach Richard Bromley tells me this kid gets it. He just gets everything you tell him. It goes in.
He's only
21. 31-year-old Matthias Guggenberger. Again, he missed out on Tuesday's training runs. Started at Eagles in luge as a kid and converted to skeleton when he was old enough, 8 years old, because his dad was a skeleton slider, as was his former coach Martin Rettel, as is his current coach Mickey Grumberger. Real powerhouse in the early years of skeleton sliding, Austria.
Look at that, he's running on the groove. You don't see that too often. Usually you see guys that are tall get over on the other groove. He's only about 5'7", 5'8".
You see most right-handers holding the sled with their left because they can get that cadence with the right arm.
Yeah, that was different. You don't see too many people running with their spikes in the grooves.
I don't know if Cookie's a southpaw or not. I must ask him one day. Things that never occur to you when you're talking to athletes. Are you left-handed? Well, in the red behind Martin Dukurs, but then almost everybody will be.
Half second behind, he's in 5th place. He'd take a 5th place.
Yeah, don't forget, 4th place Matt Antoine is half a second back in the line. Well, he slipped from 5th down to 7th on the splits, and lots of noise there under the shades.
Tapping in the graveyard section of the track, and he's in 7th. I think he'll be happy with that. You know, Mickey Grumberger, his coach, isn't. Grumberger, we just saw there, he's another former Austrian world champion in the mid-90s when Austria dominated men's skeleton. Of course, Martin Rettel, their coach, we talk about him also being the silver medalist on this track at the 2002 Winter Olympic Games, and when skeleton made its reappearance in the Olympic calendar. Here, the start. Again, he was running on that. I don't know if you like to run on those. That's the first guy we've seen running on the start groove. Here, gets away from him a little bit. And in the graveyard, taps like that. Not good.
Yeah, he'd been really scratching through the shades under 12 and 14. You could hear steps on the scale. It's the athlete and the sled that is the maximum combined weight. Tom Parsons of Great Britain, 7th in the World Cup standings, but 9th start draw for the 28-year-old from London. PhD engineering student.
He's had 2 7th place finishes in 4 events.
and one of nearly 20 Bromley sleds in the men and women's competition. He's a Bromley Tech supported athlete.
And he's a tall athlete, 6'2".
Well, is he a glider? We find out now. 471 getaway, 4th fastest in the field. Can he remain quiet and still on his sled?
Listen for some scratching.
That's the chin piece you can hear of the helmet. See a lot of the athletes with a bit of black gaffer tape on the chin piece to stop it getting worn away.
Drift there on Albert's Alley, Wasatch, decent line.
Top 5 at the moment. Career high came in Calgary, Alberta at the beginning of season 2 years ago when he claimed a bronze medal. That was his first and so far only World Cup podium appearance. And at the line, 7th, he slipped behind Mattia Gaspari by 300ths.
How about that Italian up in 6th?
Yeah, that was a great run for Gaspari. It looked like it right from the moment he went.
He's had a great run every heat. He's improved in the season, but Don Parsons, he's 2 7th-place finishes in 4 events and 7th here, so he's status quo. And watch now, he's not running on the grooves. Now watch the crossover of the hands. Technique, he didn't leave too much of his hands off those start handles. Here, this is down on the Olympic curve. His head's up. He's trying to fight not to get on that take-on too early. He might have fractionally pushed himself away a little bit. Gets weighed.
Don Parsons lying 7th. We've had 9 sleds in the first of our men's heats. Next up is Dave Kracheshin of Canada, a teacher who has traveled the world, former rugby player. He's lived in dozens of different countries, this 36-year-old. And there is the bear that carries his nickname Grizz, because everybody, when they first see the collection of high letter score Scrabble tiles that makes up his name, always has a bit of a problem pronouncing it.
Grizz, great helmet, and he's
Great
probably the thickest man in the field, 6'2", rugby player. He's a big guy. You know, he's not one of these guys we described as an 800-meter runner, like Don Parsons, who we just saw come down the tracks, got more of a square frame. So
He'd have been a great draw for Canada's bobsled team as well with his physique, but
yeah, he's a big boy.
He likes to ply his own trade here in the skeleton business, and this track could suit him well. 8th at the start, he's in 9th ahead of Mikhail Zakrau. Slips to 10th place now.
Losing time back. A lot of scratch, a lot of noise in that tunnel around the Olympic finish curve.
He may feel a little happier in Whistler next week on Canadian ice, 50.11. So 50.09 for Mikhail Zakrau. He's 200ths of a second off 9th spot.
10th place in Lake Placid, 9th in Königssee, 13th in Winterberg, and then 13th in the opening event. And he probably will stay right around that mix.
Yeah, top 10 finishes are what he's looking for here.
You know, we just saw carrying his sled down there, the Dukurs brother, or father, excuse me.
Yeah, Dennis Dukurs.
He runs the,
and again,
the track.
You know, you talk about his big shoulders and his big frame, but he's got big quads as well, Kracheshin. Martins Dukurs, the race leader from Sunbin Jung, and it is a 2-horse race. Axel Jung, Matt Antoine, Thomas Dukurs. Looks like they're in the tussle for the final podium spot. 10 of 26 down, and next up is Barrett Martineau, another man with a grizzly bear on the helmet. Bear, his nickname, former ski jumper and now ski jumping coach at Canada Olympic Park in Calgary. Just 24 years old. This is his 2nd World Cup season.
Good gait, look at him run, good stride. Watch the crossover.
Look at the turnover. Such quick legs.
Another great helmet. And
473 getaway.
2 12th-place finishes the last 2 events out. Didn't like his drift out of curve 1, though. Pretty good here out of Sunny. Now in the snowy, watch the blue line here. See if he gets above it. No, right on it. Maybe a little too low.
Martineau in the red compared to our race leader, 7th at the start. He's up to 6th position on the splits, though. This is playing well for him.
80.5 miles an hour with your chin inches off the ice.
Best result for him this season, a pair of 12ths in the last 2 races. He's in 7th on the splits.
I don't think he's ever been in the top 10.
Ooh, this could be a little wave. 8th, 9th place at the line. 6th position.
That's his best heat ever in his World Cup career, and he knows it. He's improved every week this season. He's like Gaspari from Italy. He's starting to figure things out here.
Yeah, that's a great run for Barrett Martineau. And I know there's a lot of Canadians watching from the ICC team in Koenigsegg, Bavaria. They'll be pleased with that.
You're looking at the helmet, but look at the lines. Perfect line into Wasatch. This is where he took his start time, which was the 7th best start. And a little mistake down there in the graveyards, but other than that, great run.
Again, you saw how his body was just acting like a shock absorber. He was dialed in there. The second of our Korean athletes, Richard Bromley, the sled builder and the coach, holding the sled for him. This is the older of the two, Han Sin Lee. He's raced almost exclusively in North America. Look at the artwork on his sled. Some beautiful airbrush work, and on the helmet as well. The tiger's eyes looking straight at you.
Watch his hands. Look like he ran as far. But he's got a different number.
482, and that is just a fraction quicker than Matt Antoine and Mattia Gaspari, both of whom are outside the top 3, but in the top 6.
He struggled most of the season, but did have an 11th place finish in Winterberg. And Winterberg and this track have a lot of similar personality. They're short and they're fast on the bottom. So he could get in that top 12, 14, which is, I'm sure, his target. Right now, 12.
Yeah, 12 on the splits. This could be a top 10 run. He knows the track pretty well.
Yeah, the Koreans have slid here a long time.
Yeah, we're basically based on the west coast of Whistler, but North America has been their stamping ground as they've learned their trade. And ducks his head. 50-50. We've had that before, but that was in the women's race. I'm going to go and have a little look at my sheet and see who else came down in a 50-50.
Well, we're going to see a little 50-50.
Yeah, we will next week in a very different way. Yeah. Oh,
good run, top 12. I mean,
yeah.
He's got you know, won 11th place finish in the second event, and you know, on a track that's very similar to Park City, Winterberg. And it doesn't get the lightning start, but obviously he's a glider, which means he might do well next week in Whistler. Heads up there on the Olympic curve. He tapped on the take-on going in. And Wade. They all weigh in practice to make sure they're on the line. Now we have Alexander Auer from Austria.
One of two sliding brothers of a very famous sliding father. Christian Auer was a big, big name in the early days of skeleton.
I think he won at least twice in the World Championship. I think the Austrians won like 5 times in the 90s.
Yeah, Christian was a big name in the end of the 90s. Alex, 25 years old. His brother Florian also raced World Cup this season. And Alex's pet, Mr. Boggles, a chipmunk. I said, no, really? Yeah, no, genuinely.
Is that what he put down on his form?
I believe so. Well, no, he hasn't. No, they were telling me about it in the changing rooms earlier in the week. I said, come on, you're winding me up. They said, no, it's true.
Well, his father has been at the Eagles track training all the youth people. He's back, you know, showing everybody what do well in skeleton. He was one of the best, so hopefully the bloodlines for these two, they're both young, they're both early 20s.
Yeah, his first slide from the top of the track was at the age of 2.5 with his dad kneeling over him on the skeleton sled, so he was always going to join the family business.
A lot of scratching going on at the Olympic finish curve there.
First time ever here in Salt Lake City, and 13th place, 50.56. Only 600s behind Han Sin Lee of Korea, who really does know the track a whole lot better.
Well, you can tell he's got that 800-meter square frame, square shoulders. Start, 10th best start. You need to improve on that. His father was lightning, but of course the start wasn't as big as emphasis as it is now back in the 90s.
And again, only 2 days of training for him. He had to cram in 3 runs a day.
Look at his head, though. His head's really down. Really, that's some good technique. That's a...
Well, that's what they drill into you when you're in Eagles. It's a glider's track. You've got to cheat the wind. Hiro Takahashi of Japan, Katsuhiro Koshi, his coach, holding the sled. No moose sighting so far for Koshi-san. He's going to leave a disappointed man again. So Hiro better do something to try and cheer him up. From Nagano in Japan, with a 3-year-old son, former baseball player.
And His best finish of the season was a 12th place finish in Winterberg, which, again, I keep promoting, similar to this track.
Yeah. Interesting start technique as well. He always holds his arm out straight, never slides or rocks the sled, just rigid in front of him as if he's pushing a wheelbarrow.
Start technique is one-handed start technique. Jeff Payne created it way back in like 2001 or 2. Jeff Payne now named the coach of the Chinese skeleton team, who are up in Calgary now sliding. They've been on the European track, so we're going to start seeing Chinese athletes on the tour next year. Jeff Payne, the former Olympic silver medalist in the 2006 Torino Olympic Games for Canada.
Yeah, such a great force in the early days of sliding, and he'll be a really big asset to the Chinese program as they start to grow. And Hiro Takahashi of Japan gets the line in 12th place. That's a decent run.
It's better than he's done in the other 3 World Cups. And again, the best finish was 12th in Winterberg. Okay, I won't say it again, but...
Well, of course, geographically, we're about the closest track to Japan, or apart from
Whistler's the
Whistler,
closest.
yeah.
Well,
It's
Nagano.
another hour closer.
This is where he's from, is the Nagano track.
Nagano's not iced before January, though, so they get very little chance to slide.
He's another guy running on the, it's the second guy we've seen running on the grooves. And why I say that's weird, you know, you want to have those spikes on firm ice, and that start groove, you don't have it. Look how high he gets here. Then he has to dive down. And you can see his square shoulder frame, just like the next athlete.
Alexander Mutovin of Russia. First of our Russian athletes, and again, like the women's field, the big 3 Russians are back home, training up for the World Championships, so no Alexander Tretyakov.
First event of the year was last week in Lake Placid. He had a pleasant 14th finish.
From Krasnoyarsk in Siberia. Favorite film? Terminator series. Well, who doesn't like a bit of Arnie? Probably not Red Heat, though. Moving on. So, 9th fastest start. Let's see what he can produce here. None of the Russians have really seen a lot of these tracks. I don't think Alexander has raced here before. Top 10, though, at the moment, so maybe he's done North American Cup here.
I would think he has.
I know the girls were all new, apart from Olga Potilitsina.
Who tapped there before the Olympic curve. That's going to cost him a little bit.
And do you know what? He looks busy on the sled, doesn't he? There's lots of hips, lots of knee movement, but he's still got speed. 12th place. Well, he's going to make the cut easily with this run. Oh, and lets it fly off the final wall, 50.21. That's a really nice run from Mutovin. We haven't seen a lot of him in World Cup racing, and I don't think, has seen a lot of this track. Shakes his head, but frankly, for half the field, 12th, that's a big victory. Get some applause from the fans here.
Well, the Olympic curve, watch him tap. Take-on's where you want to get on. He taps before that. Now he's got to go into the middle part of the curve, and when you go to the middle part of the curve, you have to steer more. Steering is friction. Here he just was late. That's the first athlete we've seen. He's on his shoulder there at 78 miles an hour and into the snow. That's not the perfect line in the finish.
Of course, Alexander Zubkov's favorite film was The Hunt for Red October. Martis Dukurs of Latvia, your race leader, from Sumbin Jung of Korea. Looking for somebody else to take on the challenge now. Challenge for most of our athletes now will be to get into this field for the second heat. Martin Haven, John Morgan watching. Reece Thornbury from New Zealand blasting off. The Kiwi slider, born in Perth, Western Australia, lives in Bryce Norton in Oxfordshire in England. 26-year-old, yesterday was his birthday, day off training. And final training run on Thursday, he was saying, right, I'm starting to get a feel for this track. He's never been here before.
11th best start, so he's definitely improved to start. He's an RAF guy, right?
Yeah, RAF weapons technician. They've given him a year off to come and train full time to try and make the cut.
That's pretty good right there.
Really good run, 13th place. He has no coach, nobody to go through video with. There is no no video to go through. All he does is listen to us and watch his runs.
He was 23rd last week in Lake Placid.
13th fastest. This is a really good run. First time ever on the track. And Kiwi Reece Thornbury, 52.8. That's an excellent run for him. He will make the second heat as well.
Personal bests.
Yes,
never
loving
been
that.
down. It's never been down, and this is uncharted territory.
He knows it. He knows it. You know when it feels good. They always say you really can feel it when it's working. You feel the pressures, and they all go the way they should.
Well, look at the technique. I don't like the way he's restricting his hand, and unlike a sprinter when you want to bring it forward, but he had the 11th best start. Crossover down here. Nice lines. Look at him hit that perfect Olympic curve. Royal Air Force. Yeah, baby.
Well, he's normally
best.
Loading rockets and guns, and today he was loaded for bear. That's a great run from Reece Thornbury. What about Judy? Now, he is one of the faces that we've seen on and off the World Cup Tour for several seasons. Again, I'm not sure he's raced here maybe more than once or twice.
Yeah, he's been here before, many times.
33-year-old started just after the games here, the 2003 season, and was straight into their World Cup team for the 2004 season from Chusavoy.
Well, it's all about, he might be in the diminishing part of his career here, right?
Yep, I can't see him going on past 2018. He's already 33 years old, so I'll leave him 35, which is old for an athlete, power athlete. But he's got the knowledge, he's got the experience. Can he bring it to bear here? Oh, a little bump on a skid. 13th.
This is 16th last week in Lake Placid, the first event of the season for him. And this is a medal winner. He's won World Cup medals before on the tour, at least 2, if not 3.
Not a bad looking slide. 11th on the splits now. This could be him driving himself into top 10 form.
Well, he should. He's probably one of the, I would say he's one of the most experienced athletes in the field. He's been around since 2006-07 season.
Come on, Judy. 10th place on splits at the moment. Top 10 at the line. Can he hold it on? 12th.
But he's not far out. He's only about 1600ths out of 10.
Yeah, 400 behind Dave Cheshin and 600s behind Mikhail Zakrau in 10th. So another tight little group.
Yeah,
there's been a lot of change around in the second heat, you sense. So many close margins.
Look at the form there. That's really good. This is an experienced athlete. Look at him turn his head a little bit. That's how you steer the sled minutely, is use your head, your shoulders, and if you have to drag your toes out like that with a rudder, you are slowing yourself down.
Always good fun, Judy. Next up is Anna Marambel. Few little flakes of snow still falling as the 32-year-old from Barcelona in Spain comes to the line.
Had a big football game. He had a commentary on it.
Yeah, that's the big home derby. Espanyol, his club, based in Barcelona, and Barcelona, of course, based in Barcelona. That's one of the biggest rivalries in Spanish sport.
And he does some public relations for the team, right?
Well, and for the Spanish Football League as well. He travels with their teams when they go into foreign competitions. He's their fixer. He's the Lenny of Spanish soccer.
Good form there. He qualified last week, which he was thrilled about.
And he's had a decent couple of days in training as well. 18th place in Lake Placid last week. Let's see if he can glide himself into competition. He's in 18th place at the moment.
He was 18th. It was his first time he made the cut last week in Lake Placid on a tough track. This is a glider's track. And let's see if he can hold in there. He's going to be close.
Another Bromley sled slider.
Going 18th. He's got to have perfect lines here, which isn't bad. This should be enough for a top 20.
Speed's not great at the bottom, though. 18th at the moment, 50.71. There's his brother on the left. Martin Rettel on the right is helping out, coaching a little for our Spanish slider.
Little developing nation assistant.
Yeah, his brother finished his degree and hopped on the plane to come and help.
PhD in biology or something?
Biomechanics, yeah.
Look at the lines, Anders. This
Again,
is
Anders, though, watch the rudder come out. He's steering a lot with the hips. 2 or 3 places there. Again, you see the toe, just changing the balance there to get a little more drive off the corner. And again, they're trying to stop the skid developing. You see the feet are out to one side. Sarah Lavrencic regularly slides in skeleton, and she's helping out with coaching at the moment this year. Nathan Crumpton now, again, not everything turned up for him in training. He was using Matt Antoine's spikes. And this kid is, well, he's now 30 years old, born in Harare, Zimbabwe, and has done pretty much every sport you can think of, including, he claims, riding water buffalo.
Look at this way they had the two hands at the start.
Yeah.
Different technique.
Triple jumper in college. He said that is masochism in athletics.
Great start.
Yeah, 4.70, fourth fastest in the field.
He's only qualified once of 3 races that he's been in this year. In Winterberg, he got an 18th place finish. Well, Winterberg in this track.
Let's see how he can do here. 4th still on the splits. Don't forget, in the women's race, we have the US athletes lying 4th and 5th after the first heat. Matt Antoine lies 4th.
This is pretty good so far.
He is ahead of his teammate Matt Antoine at the midway point. Now he slips a little out to 6th position.
Still anything in the top 10 would be a great result. His best finish so far is 18th.
World Cup rookie this season, Nathan Crumpton rolls it across the line, 49.68. That is a great run for him. Okay, he knows the track, but listen, everywhere else he goes, he's going to have to suck it up because he's never been there that many times.
Well, when you have a great start time, you have a chance for the best finish time, and he has the 4th best start, 6th best finish. His PB, personal best ever in a World Cup competition heat.
Great job. Great job by Nathan Crumpton. Yeah. Photographer who doesn't have an Instagram page, a model, and an athlete.
Look at, he's running on those grooves, and again, I'm
Again,
nervous about that. You want to have your cleats, your little spikes on all of the ice, and there's a hole there on those grooves. But I guess that works for him with the 4th best start. This isn't pretty, but it's you know, right there is the finish line, right where he was touching that wall.
He was letting it fly, wasn't he? So there is Nathan Crumpton. Great run for him. 6th position. Now John Farrer of Australia, 34-year-old from Sydney, former mountain bike racer. Managed to survive that without injury and then blew out a knee and an ankle in a training incident in Lake Placid a few years back.
He spent a little time at rehabilitation for the last 2 years.
Spent a couple of seasons off the ice and another one sliding with a plastic cast on his ankle to support it.
He's got a 4.94 start. Before he got injured, they were promoting him as a rocket starter, and now he's 30 hundredths back.
And, he was quick. He'd have been in the 70s without that injury, and I don't think that speed will ever return, but he has got knowledge. And he has got a never say die attitude that the Aussies love as well.
He spent a lot of time in this track on the North America Tour, so he knows it well. And he's in the 20th position right now.
One of 2 Aussies in the field. Jacqueline Maricot didn't make the cut for the women's race, the only Aussie in the women's competition, 18th.
Wow. So that bumps, so that puts Under Mirabelli on the bubble.
And Alexander Auer 19th, Under Mirambel 20th place. 20 sleds down, 6 to come, but no more places left in the race.
20th best start, 18th best finish. So he drove himself into that position. Should be enough to put him in the top 20. And again, this isn't the athlete, you know, his feet. That's like, didn't he have besides the knee injury, didn't he smash his foot? I think he also had a foot injury. So he's had some tough injuries the last couple of years.
Knee and ankle, wasn't it? Which is, just all you need, really, isn't it, when you're a sprinter?
What?
Shoulder, hip, you know, shoulder you can deal with when you're a sprinter, but knee and ankle, not so much. Martins Dukurs leads, 20 sleds down, the field is full. And now, for the remaining 6 athletes, go fast or go home. Pressure then on Anton Batuev, the 31-year-old from Chusavoy in Russia. Started in 2005, 2008, his first season in the Russian World Cup squad. Still a few little bits of snow drifting down out of the sky. Not enough really to affect the speed of the track.
Not like we saw last night bobsledding.
That was horrible. 19th fastest start, leaves him in a hole right away. And from outside the top 20, John, this is always a high-pressure battle now. Smooth line so far, very quiet. You hear no scratching, just a crunchy noise of the sled on the ice. Swings the hips to cure the skid. 19th place still, he's in the race. And Marambel will get the drop. He's 17th now, so he's moving up the order ahead of Hansin Lee. Oh, you heard the chin piece just bouncing there off the ice.
He's got a lot of experience on the World Cup.
Good run, 15th, he's in.
Yeah, so Adler Marambel is out, you know, but he had the 19th best start, drove him down to 15th. He's been around, as you said, for a long time, Mark.
Yeah.
Showed his experience.
Yep. When you've got to dig deep, when you know you're under pressure, that's where knowledge and experience of those situations count, even if you're not so familiar with the track.
He's been on this track numerous times.
Probably no more than 3 or 4, I would have thought, in his whole career.
Well, look at the head down, look at the eyes through the visor. He's going to come over here and get on the take-on, which is the left side of our screen, of the big Wasatch curve.
He was desperate to avoid the skid there. Gets in, though. He's in the field in 15th place. On the bubble is Alexander Auer of Switzerland. And friend and fellow slider Ronald Arduous now has to try and beat him. Arduous, 26-year-old mechanical engineering student. Picked up by the Swiss team in 2008.
Concentration.
World Cup rookie. His first big appearance was last year in the World Championships.
I think his sled was missing in the luggage too. Good technique, out driving, his feet outside that start groove.
See the run there from behind, down into turn 1. It's quite a long straight run. If you get into trouble there, you're really in trouble. 8th fastest start.
Great start.
Let's see what he can produce from here.
You know, we talk about the Austrians being dominant in the 90s. The Swiss, with Gregor Staulich, was a dominant figure in the sport for Switzerland. And they're trying to find some Swiss athlete to replace the legend of Gregor Staulich, which is going to be difficult.
Yeah, yes, last year, Gregor Staulich was forerunning one of the course openers in St. Moritz. He was still the fastest Swiss male slider. 15th place for Ronald.
Rough from that.
Again, first time on this track, though. On a set. Will he make it into the top 20? No, he doesn't. Alexander Auer survives. Another one.
So that's something he can improve on. 8th best start.
Yeah.
He should be 10th or 12th. Of course, when you saw the wild move that he had up there in curve 12 and 13, the sled got away from him. And, you know, this is a work in progress.
Yeah.
When you got to start, though, 8th best start, he's got a chance.
Yeah, Lake Placid, he huge PB'd in his starts, and this is another big getaway here, but just too busy on the sled.
Yeah, there's a lot of activity here to that straightaway, and then watch this, way up high on the outlet, crosses over 13 into the Olympic or into the finish curve now, and he doesn't have real control of that sled, which is why he fell from where he did to outside the top 20.
Swiss teammate Marco Rohrer, 20 years old. Marco the calves. Normally wears glasses, slides in contacts, but he was saying he's keeping his head up too much. He was thinking maybe one time he might try taking the contacts out, and then he can't see in front of him. He has to look down at the track, and that might keep his head down. And that's the sort of logic you get from a University of Bern IT student, also majoring in climate change.
In the first 2 events of the season, he qualified for the second run. The last 2 weekends, including before Christmas, Lake Placid last weekend, he did not qualify for top 20. So hopefully this track has got what he needs. And right now, he's
10th fastest start, just 100 behind his teammate.
Encouraging for the Swiss to have kids with 8th and 10th best starts.
Absolutely. Give me a runner, I'll turn him into a slider. That's what all the coaches want. 12th down to 15th. This could be dangerous. 16th, and lots of noise at the bottom of the track. 76 miles an hour head first, and it's all rushing at him a little quicker than he can cope with. 18th at the line. He's in.
He knocks out.
I don't think he thought he was. Did you see the way he picked his hand off the saddle even as he came across the line? I think he thought he was done.
Hey, he gets the best style points at the finish.
Points for dismount.
Yes. Yeah, Pat made the cut, 3rd time. Personal best is all they're looking for here.
If we see him come out the finish line, he didn't think it was happening. He thought he was out.
Tapped into that Olympic curve, that cost him. And here, this wasn't smooth. We heard a loud noise there, and that's that hit right there. And going uphill in that section, you hit up there.
He came out of the final corner, almost sitting up.
Look who's helping him. Dennis,
Yeah.
Dukurs, the father of the
helping out
Dukurs
with
brothers.
everybody. Well, now here's our first ever appearance on TV for Rasmus Ottosson, 25-year-old from Sweden. His older brother Linus got him into it. He's on a borrowed Parker sled. He's been here since last Friday. His sled has yet to catch up with him. So I told him we'd say nice things because he has had such a tough week on his borrowed sled.
Oh, boy, was that a mistake.
He said, I still have no idea how to drive this thing.
But having a Swedish skeleton athlete in the field, awesome. Having somebody from the Scandinavian countries. We've seen it in bobsledding, Norway and Sweden both have teams. We saw a Norwegian team at the Berchtesgaden event.
Played soccer till he blew a knee at 15. His brother Linus, as I said, brought him into the sport, but it's Rasmus that makes his World Cup debut first. Now, if only his own sled had turned up, life would be an awful lot better.
Well, World Cup debut. Good to see him out here. Hope to see him next week. I'm sure we'll see him in Whistler too.
And on a borrowed Parker sled, which is very different from his own kit. Still really struggling to try and find any way of controlling it. 51.80 slide for him, 24th in the field. But Rasmus, welcome to the World Cup. Hopefully his own sled will have returned to Vancouver by the time we get there in a day or two. But it's been a tough grind this week, not the debut he was hoping for. So excited to be able to come, so disappointed that the airlines can't find a sled with a week to do it.
Well, this is the only athlete we've seen come out of the grooves. Watch him come out of the grooves, then watch him go to the right side of the curve.
Gets
and
popped
then
out,
he hits here. Boy, that's the first athlete we've seen do that, and that sends them to the back of the field.
Yep. So Rasmus Ottosson does not get a second heat, and he knew that was going to happen. He was just hoping against hope that his sled might turn up. Joe Cecchini from Italy, or for Italy. Cecchini, no.
How do you pronounce that?
I have been corrected yet again on how to get my Italian right. 34-year-old from Toronto, Ontario. Struggled with a hamstring problem from the start of the season. Spent his entire Christmas New Year break pretty much in court. He works as a cop and he was working every day before he headed back to Lake Placid last week.
21st in Lake Placid last week, has not qualified for the top 20 yet.
472. See, those are good starts.
Yeah, that's a
good
great start. Seventh best start. Again, Canadians win the awards. All of the men and women's teams all have beautiful painted helmets.
Okay, come on, Joe. Let's see a nice, quiet run. So far, all good.
13th, 7th to 13th. Now he's dropped to 19th. He dropped a lot of time.
Goodness.
This for that 7th best start. Wow.
Lots of chattering away.
And now he's out of the mix, 22nd.
22nd.
This must be some kind of setup on the sled.
Yeah, I wonder what he's done with runners. Whatever it is, it's not working at all well. And Cecchini does not make the field. 50.73. He'll be very disappointed with that.
Yeah, with that type of
Last
start.
year, he and Mattia Gaspari were fairly even. Yeah. Gaspari here today is in 8th and Joe 24th.
And with a good start, 7th best start. Look at, I mean, I think that's runners.
Yeah. He's a second slower than his teammate.
Yeah, set up. Look at the helmet's all you can look at, but look at his toes. Everything's not going straight ahead here.
Well, he still still 472, 7th fastest start.
Good
That's
start.
a great getaway.
I understand. I got to believe that's the setup.
Yeah. More questions than answers again for Joe. Next up, with the green and gold of Australia, one of the twins, the Timmins brothers, Dean, his twin brother, back home recovering after injury. 25-year-old, last week slid on a borrowed Parker sled.
Look at, he's way outside the grooves. He's much like a Thomas Dukurs. He's not as tall as Dukurs.
Nice soft load, though, for Dean Timmins. 494 getaway.
Not a very good start. These are action sport athletes.
He's back on his own sled.
Ooh.
It's a 2011 Bromley sled that was once used by Michelle Steele. In fact, his training suit was owned by Melissa Hall. She gave two, one to him, one to his brother.
Head's way up.
Yeah.
Toes out.
We're still watching where he's going rather than knowing where he's going, which you'll see with the likes of Martin Dukurs, our race leader. And it takes really several years to get proper knowledge of these tracks so you're intimate with them. At the moment, he's going on what he sees, whereas the fastest go on what they feel. 51.60 Dean Timmings does not make the cut either, but at least he has his sled back, so at least he's got some chance of improving his performance. Disappointed with that though, and again you sense that may not be down to the drive as much as maybe the setup they've chosen.
You've got to learn a little bit how to take care of the sled. This doesn't help her in the approaching the sunny, and then he gets in the middle of the curve and has to steer too much, gets high there. And here in Albert's Alley, you know, doesn't look real comfortable there. See it coming up, but you know, we talked about how quiet Dukurs is on the sled.
Dean Timmings, fluent Japanese speaker as well. His Japanese father, Australian.
Look who's lead.
Martin Dukurs on a 5-win streak, going for the 6th in a row. He's won all 4 races this season, plus last year's World Championships on the bounce. And he leads here. It's a close race, though, for the gold. Sunbin Jung of Korea, 1600s back, will make sure that Dukurs is under pressure for the second heat.
I'm just thinking, when does he make mistakes? I mean, he's just so perfect. I'm not going to jinx the guy, but he's won all 4 races. I don't know if he's lost more than 1 heat in the season.
Yeah, he came from behind 1 heat against Alexander Tretiakov.
He's on his own planet. It's just, you know, Tretiakov hasn't challenged him yet this year, not here in the North American swing, getting ready for the St. Moritz and then the Innsbruck World Championships.
Yeah, Tretiakov is going to try and take back the World Championship that Dukurs stole from him last time out. Martin Dukurs leads 1600s between him and Sunbin Jung. Jung needs the drive of his life to take gold here. Axel Jung in 3rd will have to hold off Matt Antoine, Thomas Dukurs, and who knows, maybe Nathan Crumpton as well for that medal position.
And Gaspari from Italy in 7th, that's great.
Some standout drives. Mikhail Zakharov, first time here in 11th. And Reese Thornberry, 15th position, tied with Anton Batuev. That's a big run from him. Big run from Marco Rohrer as well. John Farrow held on in the field. Alexander Auer, Ronald Arderset, Ander Rambel, Joe Cecchini, Dean Timmings, and Rasmus Ottersen, our first-time World Cup starter, do not make the second heat. Well, that will be coming up in a little over an hour from now. Between now and then, though, women's skeleton heat 2 coming up in Park City.